Welcome to the Region Free Gamers podcast. Today, our listeners are bringing the heat. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Region Free Gamers podcast, the podcast fluent in gaming. My name's Paul Romalo, and with me today, out of Rhode Island, Arnaldo Perez.
Yo, yo, yo.
And rounding out the merry men for today, out of the Netherlands, Geoff Ivats.
Good day, gentlemen.
Good day, Geoff. I feel a little bit bad, actually, because I didn't mention anything about your gingerness in the intro. So I feel like I'm kind of failing the rest of the guys. I just don't understand the fascination with it, personally.
It's fine. It's fine. I just have. It's an affliction I have to handle. Don't worry.
So, at the time of recording, up here in the Yukon, we've been in the midst of a really nasty cold snap. Temperatures have been between minus 35 and minus 42 for about
Jesus
6
Christ.
days now. And I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. And I'll be honest with you, I don't care. Because the USA really needs to get off that ridiculous temperature system and get onto what
Looking
everybody
it up
else is
right
doing.
now.
Who you are, Paul? Who you are, Paul? Preach.
So between minus 35 and minus 42, it's been nuts. Like, this is the coldest for the longest amount of time that it's been since I moved up here. But you know what?
Minus 35 is negative 31 degrees Fahrenheit.
There you go.
Wow.
So for
Paul,
our American friends.
I think that you need to realize that you've settled in a place that is unfit for human life.
I really
should
do.
leave.
It has become clear now. It's bizarre. But in any case, even with this cold, it doesn't matter. Because today, thanks to our listeners, we're going to be bringing the hottest show we've ever done. So recently, we asked our listeners for their video game hot takes. And I got to say thanks to our listeners because they're awesome. They sent in a ton of crazy opinions, some of which were valid and some of which were just bizarre. and I love them. I was drenched in sweat as I read them. Such was their heat. And you know what? Speaking of our listeners, thanks everyone for listening. Thank you for getting in touch with us and providing us with show ideas and feedback. You know, we really appreciate it. And hey, don't forget to tell a friend about the show and leave us a review on your podcast app of choice. 5 stars, please. And you know what? I gotta say, congrats, guys. We finally got a 1-star review.
Sure did.
That's a lot of work to get that. That's a lot of work. Well done.
Yes. I think we should all be very proud of this. It was...
Listen, if you don't have haters, you're doing something wrong.
Exactly. So we... I didn't say anything in chat, but... And I wish Ozzy was here because he could defend himself, but I'm going to basically blame him. Because we got a 1-star review and we got a 2-star review, like, in quick succession. And I'm fairly certain it was because of Ozzy's profanity-laced tirade about Nintendo and the reviews.
No, it's funny.
It was, right?
What's funny is I dug around and I actually found the 1-star review, and it was from LeBron James. He didn't like our NBA Jam episode. It was really weird.
I've had nothing but good things to say about LeBron on this show. I've mentioned him like twice, and each time it was in, I deified the guy.
Well, he clearly hates you, Paul. So it's not mutual, is it anymore? It's personal.
Jeez, man. To think I could elicit such hate in someone who makes, 500 million times more money than I do.
At least.
Yeah. Or it could have been, it also could have been, so what do you think? Is LeBron an Ocarina fan or is he a Resident Evil fan? I know the answer, but I want to hear your opinion.
If I had to guess, I would think LeBron is an Ocarina fan. I don't think he's into the whole zombie thing.
What about you, Geoff? What do you think?
I got to think that he was a PlayStation gamer. I got to think,
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He hasn't got time to deal with a three-pronged controller. He's either in the courts playing as with his mates, or he's playing Gran Turismo and Destruction Derby. He hasn't got time for Nintendo.
Thank you, Geoff. Thank you. That's correct
fair,
answer.
but I feel like his hands are so massive that the Nintendo 64 controller is just normal for him. You know what I mean? Like
until he has to hold the middle prong, right? Once he has to hold the middle prong with his giant mitts, then it becomes this unwieldy, piece of garbage.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yep.
Fair point.
Imagine all the analog sticks he would have broken off just in pure rage. Ugh.
You're right. Mario Party would not have been fun for him.
No.
Speaking of the Nintendo 64 and the controller, this is a great segue into the hot takes, because one of the first ones that I got when I asked everyone for those takes was about the Nintendo 64. I've got them all written out here, so we're gonna go through them. We got one from a guy on Instagram, Derelict Device. I don't know his actual name. In fact, a lot of these, it's just gonna be people's handles. We got them mainly through Instagram and our site there.
Yeah.
Or our page, rather. Instagram doesn't have sites. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Wow.
In any case, Derelict Device, he sent us one, and it starts... It's so hot. He starts off immediately. Zelda Ocarina of Time is terrible. That's the first line. The first line. I love it. The controls are overly complicated. It's impossible to tell where you're going or where you've been. I wandered around the first area for an hour trying to find the hut where you buy the shield. It's amazing. I love that he spent an hour. He admits now this comment actually sparked a little bit of debate in the comments. I saw that. Which, people were not impressed with Mr. Derelict Device, and he in turn was not impressed with them. I'm just gonna skip through here. Terrible game. Actually, a lot of N64 games are bad. Extremely overrated console. And then he writes, this isn't about being bad at a game, because immediately people were like, "You're terrible," right?
Yeah.
It took you an hour to find the hut where you buy the shield. It just you're so bad. Mm-hmm. And he says, "Look, it's not about being a bad game. It's about a game being poorly designed and not intuitive, coupled with the extreme non-ergonomic N64 controller. There's a reason there are so many people making redesigned N64 controllers." I don't know, Geoff. What do you think?
That's a great point. That last one.
Isn't it?
I have to agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see. I don't remember what it's called. It's like the Retro Fighter Pad or something like that.
Yeah.
That's
what it is.
Every single like retro N64 controller I've seen has been not the original. Like every single one. And to be fair, I'm sure there are a whole bunch. I'm sure that there's some out there that are reproduced that like maintain the original feel. But Jesus Christ, man, that controller was awful.
Yes. That's the part. It's like a real duality of a hot take, because the second half of that I completely agree with. Like that controller needs to be redesigned. It's the devil itself. But the first part of it, part of me is like, I definitely remember being in that first area of Ocarina of Time and walking into my house like 3 times and just being like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But like, I definitely did not spend an hour to find the shop. So maybe it's a little of column A, little of column B. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I don't remember any of that, I'll be honest with you. But I mean, I was also older too. I don't know what age Mr. Derelict Device was when he played the game. So it's possible he was like 9 years old, in which case, I can't really blame him for taking an hour. And again, he admitted that it didn't take an hour. He was exaggerating. But I don't remember having these issues at the beginning. I just kind of like wandered around and then made my way out onto Hyrule Field. And to be fair, once I got to Hyrule Field, I was like, wow, cool. And then I never played the game again. And to this day, I'm like, I just don't know why.
Well, Paul was like, this is too much freedom. I don't like this.
Well,
Yeah, I don't quite get it.
we're just coming off the back of the Games of '98 episode where we had Ocarina on it, and I remember thinking through that episode when we were recording it. I was like thinking, well, I personally prefer Resident Evil 2. Like, that was my game, but I can see why Zelda Ocarina of Time is so beloved. But when I've played it, I've always played it knowing what I needed to do, so I never encountered like, where do I need to go next? But I can completely appreciate if you've got it and you're 8 or 9 years old, and it's just the first time you've got this 3D world, the first time you've got this bizarre controller in your hands, you're going, where the hell am I meant to be going? What is going on? What am I doing? I can see why somebody would just kind of, through frustration, not see what they need to do.
Yeah.
Because we've all been there with games where, like, you kind of, even in real life, you get so frustrated by something, you struggle to kind of clearly see what's in front of you. So I have to think that maybe that's happened with this guy. I think when he goes on about it being a poorly designed game and the controls are complicated, when we spoke about it, we actually said like the controller simplified the game. A lot of actions were quite simple. Like a Link would automatically jump, so there wasn't an overcomplication, like in my mind. But the game was very much a counterattack fighting mechanism. So I can understand why you're constantly circling. You've got your shield. You're trying to attack. It's not like if you've come from a brand new or a fairly modern open world game, I can see why going back to Ocarina is like completely counterintuitive. I'm trying to see where this guy's coming from, but I don't think it's that badly designed. I don't know what you guys think.
I think there is also something to be said for someone who just didn't enjoy something and therefore only played it the one or the two times he tried to play it, and then that's what you remember, right? Because if you played Ocarina and you enjoyed it, of course you're like, oh, that was easy. Like it's you know, like I did it a bunch of times. I've played this game 100 times. And maybe you don't remember, like, the first time you were like, oh, where do I go? Like, what am I doing? You know?
Yeah.
But if you just played it the one time and you had that bad experience, like, that's the thing that you remember now. It's like those damn stupid stump buildings that suck.
Yeah, pretty much.
So there's one part that I think maybe we should just touch upon is actually a lot of N64 games are bad. Extremely overrated console. So we've also
why do you want to get us more 1-star reviews, Geoff? I just want to know.
It's just an interesting thing because I do think, well, we were talking about it as well offline.
Yeah.
Somebody's also kind of shouted up saying, hey guys, can you stop ragging on the N64? And you know, I don't know whether we're all on the same boat here, but N64 really was a console of its time. It's a really hard console to go back to for me. But I'm really worried now about, like, what do I say about the N64? That is, like, me being honest whilst also not pissing people off. Especially you guys in America, you love the N64. I don't get, you know, I don't, like, in Europe, we're a bit more Sony, Sega, but yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Okay, I gotta backpedal here for a second. I didn't know that someone got in touch with us and defended the N64. When did this happen?
This happened like not that long ago.
Okay, I must have just missed this on the group chat. That makes me happy. It makes me happy that we're eliciting passion. Look, okay, here's the thing about the N64, and here's how I'm gonna get people not to hate us. Okay, so. The thing about the N64, and at least with me personally, I can't speak for the other two of you. The reason that I hate on the N64 so much is because I wanted more from Nintendo, and I was really disappointed because Nintendo is at this point, even at that point, right, early on in the history of video games, because we're still kind of like, we're just now kind of getting to the adolescence of this whole hobby, right? And we were going from baby steps to child and so on and so forth. So even back in 1996, 1997, Nintendo already had the world's most beloved video game IPs, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
at this point, we have a company that is no longer just making video games. They are a steward for the stories and for the characters that we grew up with, that we adore, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, the N64 comes out, and it was just so frustrating to see a company be like, no, we're going to produce really expensive cartridges instead of going to the CD format. And the way in which they did it, which was just clearly hubris. Like, there's just no other reason for it. It's just, we don't want to pay Sony royalties for this CD technology, right? That's all there is to it. We're going to go with our own proprietary system. And like I said, it was just very frustrating at the time. And it's still kind of frustrating today, because that decision with the N64 really just kind of, it made them lose that stranglehold on the industry. Whether that's good or bad, I mean, you know, that's a debate for another time. But understand that when I hate on the N64, it's because at the time I wanted to like it. And it just made me so mad that these terrible decisions were being made.
And Paul, not only were Nintendo making those decisions, but who was paying the price for that? The consumers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like,
go ahead, Geoff.
No, say you've got expansion packs to be able to unlock more game. You've got $60 to $80 pound games. It's like, it's just a completely unreasonable thing to ask people to pay that kind of money for video games. No wonder Sony and the PlayStation kind of just rocketed away with things and just completely obliterated it in terms of sales. It was accessible, and that's what I know. You can say, oh, it led the path down casual gaming and what have you, but Nintendo outpriced themselves. They completely shot themselves in the foot for that generation. And expecting the customers to foot the bill is a very arrogant thing to do. And you could argue. Yeah,
that's kind of how I look at it. Arrogant is it's a very apt word for what happened there. So, like, you know, again, it's not just that we're hating on it. Like, for me personally, it's just because I really hoped for more, and I was really ticked off that, you know, they were, man, just the prices of the games. Like, at that time I was working at EB Games still, and just seeing the difference in prices of the games, like $30-$40 in the difference between a PlayStation and a Nintendo 64 game. It was like, it was almost insulting, and the technology was just inferior. It was maddening. So, you know, again, please don't hate us for hating the N64. It really comes from a place of love. It really does. But still, you know, terrible system. What can I say, right?
Yeah. I think, like, for me, just a little quick hit on my part is I love the N64 in terms of I have that nostalgic connection to it. I grew up, like, just at the right time to have an N64, I think. And the few games that I had for it and that I managed to play for it, I really enjoyed. And I think because I was at that age, I was able to look past a lot of the shortcomings of the system. And now as I grow older, it just becomes increasingly hard for me to go back to it. That's my real issue with not even just the N64, but just that generation, because it's the beginnings of that sort of push for 3D. It's hard for me to go back and play a lot of those games. The N64 especially, because it has the added controller problem. But just even PS1 stuff, like, I love a lot of PS1 games, but I just can't sit down and play them for any, like, extended period of time, because I'm just like, this hurts my eyes. Like, this doesn't look great. And it's just, it doesn't control like I'd want it to control nowadays. And it's just, like, so difficult. But that's really it for me. You know, I think that, you know, the library on the N64 is shallow. I mean, in terms of just the total amount for it. And the quality is there. I mean, there are a good amount of quality titles on the N64, but for a console like that, I would expect it to be a little deeper. Like, the variety maybe is not as deep as I'd like it to be.
Yeah, pretty much. And because of the system's limitations, like, you just have a complete and utter lack of role-playing games.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's, as we've seen every generation, like you need, for whatever reason, you need the RPGs. Even though they're not necessarily the most popular games, there's something about those kind of games that becomes a bellwether for whether your system is going to be successful or not. I mean, I guess back then, you could just equate it with Squaresoft, right? Squaresoft were kind of like the kingmakers. If you had Square on your side back then, you know, you're going to do fine.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at, I think, you know, N64 got short shrift on a couple of big IPs like Castlevania. Like you got Symphony of the Night on one side and you got Castlevania 64 on the other. Like,
oh man,
it's not
tough.
Great.
No.
I'm gonna skip over a whole bunch of these. We'll go to them. I wrote them again in order. We're not going to go in order, whatever. It just seems apt now to go to Dr. Taco 1982. Man, I love these names. So I'm actually generous, or jealous rather. I wish I was Dr. Taco. That's awesome.
That's a great name.
This was my friend's opinion on the PS1 being the worst system ever.
Oh, Lord.
Quote, it was an underpowered system with awful 3D graphics that was only ever cool because it was cutting edge. Once the technology moved on, it didn't even have the nostalgia charm like the SNES or the Genesis. Even the PSP blew it out of the water, and that thing was a handheld. And then the N64 wasn't much better.
Yeah. I think what we're all learning here is that Paul was right. We all should have gotten Saturns.
Yeah.
Probably the worst of the three. Let's not kid ourselves. But, you know, I only mentioned this one because it just kind of piggybacks on what Arnie was saying.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, going back to this generation now, you know, pretty rough ride. We've mentioned this on the show about a dozen times. But with that said, at the time, it was awesome. Like, I don't know if I necessarily agree with this hot take.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have a problem with it being cutting edge, but also being underpowered. I don't know how.
I don't quite get that one.
Do that.
That's fine.
So I completely disagree with it being underpowered. But it does look, I mean, you know, you can find like good examples on both sides. Like, what's a good, like, Croc, like, I can't look at that game anymore. Even something like something like Final Fantasy VII, like Cloud's like pipe cleaner arms that like bulge out at the end, like they're just hard to look at. But then you look at something like Marvel vs. Capcom or Symphony of the Night, and those look amazing. And so it's like, you know, if Sony wasn't so driven to like push that 3D on us, I think we'd have like a larger swath of like really nice looking 2D pixel art games that we could go back to.
Yeah.
But as it stands, like Siphon Filter is probably what you're going to get most of the time.
I think well, like the Saturn and the PlayStation were amazing 16-bit consoles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the games that I still play today are the pixel art. It's the stuff with the fully rendered backgrounds. Like Final Fantasy VII looks good mostly because the backgrounds aren't 3D. They're, you know.
Yep.
So that is where those consoles still today like are very powerful and incredibly good fun to play. But yeah, going back and even for me, like playing Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, I'm like, I can't play these 3D games anymore. But like things like Broken Sword look really good. So there are examples. Like Gran Turismo, I can still appreciate how good it looked at the time. It's not as hard to look at, but yeah, I think for me the reason why maybe this person doesn't look back as fondly, I think the SNES and the Genesis, they're going to become timeless machines. I think they're always going to look fantastic.
Well, that's the peak, right? That's the peak of 16-bit pixel graphics. Like they were working, they knew they had perfected it at that point. Yeah. And then sort of move into like the fetal stage of 3D graphics. Like it's not going to look, the transition was never going to be smooth on that one.
No, it wasn't.
But we all loved it at the time. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, at the time I was like drooling on the floor. I was like, oh my God, we have achieved peak reality. As like Snake's empty eyes stared at me.
And I mean, a few years into that cycle, we did see good looking 3D games still, right? Like Metal Gear Solid is extremely playable, and all of its environments are 3D, no pre-rendered stuff. Radiant Silvergun on the Saturn, all 3D, no pre-rendered. And that one still looks really good. So, they're out there. That take maybe a little bit too spicy, I think. Before we take a break, I'll do one more here.
Yeah.
This is the first one that I got, and it was just completely unexpected. It was awesome. So Xanadu32 on Instagram, unpopular opinion. Sonic Boom on the Wii U was really fun. The characters were refreshed and expressed distinct personalities. The levels were vast and themed uniquely between areas. And here's the key. The later builds of the games were patched to be nearly glitch and lag free. So, I didn't actually know how broken this game was on release until you mentioned it to me, Arnie, because after I got this hot take, I immediately went on, because I never played Sonic Boom, right?
Yeah.
Like nowadays, you get a Sonic game and you just assume it's going to be bad. So like I haven't played a new Sonic game in ages, except for Sonic Mania. Sonic Mania is
good.
Great,
Mania's good,
yeah. But regardless, I never played it, so I immediately went online and I looked at gameplay videos of Sonic Boom. And I don't know. I thought it looked pretty good. Like it has that really colorful Wii U-ness to it.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of game that I would play necessarily, but it didn't look terrible. And then you mentioned the glitches to me, Arnie. Like, what kind of glitches did this game have again?
Oh my God. The game was just like, upon release was just busted. Like it became viral how broken this game was when they released it. But the most famous one I remember is like the Knuckles infinite jump glitch, where there's just a specific area in the game, I think, where you can just make Knuckles jump in the air like infinitely, and so you can essentially fly around like levels. It's like it looks horrendous because essentially he's going through his jump animation like every like second and a half through the air. But no, and I remember there was just like clipping issues like everywhere. There's like, AI issues. There was all sorts of stuff. People said like it was almost unplayable when it came out. So that's the version I saw. I never saw anything past like initial launch. So I don't know what the patches have done. Good for them for even patching it, after they sort of sold the initial wave of copies.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to go back and take a look at it, because now I'm genuinely curious, because that game like looked insanely like broken when I saw it.
Is it bad of me to say that I want to play the broken version instead of the patched version?
Exactly.
The broken version is hilarious.
Yeah. Buy a copy, turn off your internet, and have a blast.
Exactly.
I reckon. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I will. It's not expensive. It's like it's a Wii U game. It's a Sonic game. These aren't exactly fetching high prices. So yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I'll just pick it up on a lark next time I'm at a game store and see what happens. Yeah, turn off that internet and give it a shot. Because like the glitches, I have to admit, the glitches sound hilarious. I actually want to see this. It's not often anymore that I really get tickled by a glitch in a game. Like more often than not, the glitch is really just the game crashing and then I get pissed off. But every once in a while, like I'll see a graphical glitch, and like for example, Final Fantasy 15, I actually took a video of it and I watch it from time to time. Like if I'm feeling down, I'll load up a video of Prompto just running into a rock, and that's all he does. Like I was playing the game and I had him standing next to a rock, and then he just ran into it, stopped, and then ran into it again, and then stopped. And he did this like 20 times, and I just sat there fascinated, watching Prompto run into the rock over and over. So, anyhow, not really related to Sonic Boom, but here we are. All right, guys, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, more heat. All right, everyone, and we're back, and we've still got a ton of spicy hot takes to get through. Arnie, do you want to take it away here?
Sure. So this one I actually found really entertaining because I'm just going to read the opinion. It's by LSD or ISD Games. Capital I's and lowercase L's in English are just dumb. So I don't.
I know, right?
I want to cover all of my bases. But he says, here's my unpopular opinion. Saints Row 4 is a better game than GTA 5. And he says it's because he loves superpowers and he can actually fight more people than just the police. I kind of agree. I haven't played Saints Row 4, but I've played the first 3 and I love Saints Row. It's so ridiculous. And it's so unabashedly, just like not giving a fuck that I can't help but truly enjoy that game because I think it took what GTA 3 sort of did unintentionally for players, which is like give you a fun sandbox that you enjoy messing around in more than actually doing the story missions, and just made that like the main thing.
Exactly.
It's like, let me give you even more weapons, more cars, more costumes, more insane stuff to do. And like, well, there's a story here if you want, and it's ridiculous and funny. But if you don't want to do that at all, like, have at it.
Yeah.
So in that respect, I do enjoy Saints Row as a whole more than GTA. I love GTA 5. There's a lot of story in GTA 5. I'm just like, I gotta follow 3 guys around. I'm like, all right, I get it. One of them's like super crazy and wacky. It's it's funny. It's funny. I get it.
We all
did a
laughed,
Lindsay Lohan bit. Like we're good. It's cool. But if I want to beat somebody over the head with a dildo bat, like it's got to be Saints Row, right? There's no other option.
No.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Look, these games are inherently ridiculous, right?
Yes.
So why not just turn it all the way up to 11, right? Like, I look at a game like Saints Row 4 and just visually, it is so delightful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you said, Arnie, the dildo bat, the powers. Like, I just want it. This is also, why I like Infamous or Crackdown, right? Like, it just takes these elements. Now, don't get me wrong. Saints Row 4, in my opinion, does it better than any of those because, it's just that much more ridiculous. But I like
it doesn't take itself seriously at all.
At all. And that's what's great about it. Like, you could, split hairs about which game is quote unquote better. And I mean, if you looked at it from a technical standpoint and blah, 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 then Grand Theft Auto 5 probably. But I don't know, man. I'd rather play Saints Row 4 personally.
Yeah. I like to think of it also as like, without GTA, there is no Saints Row. So like, it makes sense that Saints Row would sort of go that extra mile just to set itself apart from GTA.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. As soon as you start trying to copy GTA, kind of beat for beat, you're sunk before you've even started.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, for me, I'm going to be careful not to give too much away of my hot take, but GTA, so for me, GTA 3 is peak GTA because it was all about using the cheats to have as much fun as possible.
That is true.
And when I played it, way back, it would have been 2001 with my mate. It would be every Friday night. It was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, WWF Raw, and then we'd be playing until 2-3 in the morning GTA 3, just with the cheats on.
Oh man!
I know that the late 90s, early noughties were just insane.
No, dude, that's a murderer's row of media. You know,
you were doing it
really
right.
Good
yeah, exactly. But so when I was play Vice City, play San Andreas, play GTA 4, then GTA 5, I enjoyed them, but about halfway through each one, I'm bored. Like the story's boring. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again. Okay, they got bigger and bigger and bigger. They got more complex. They got more. The AI got better, etc., etc. But the fun for me just would always peter out halfway through. GTA 5 I did complete, but again, like the last 15 hours, I did it because I was like, well, I've committed so much to this. Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
I'm this far into it.
But I've never played a Saints Row. I do know about them, and I think that they would be more fun because it's basically GTA with the cheats on. So to me, it's pretty much. That's fun GTA. But I think GTA 5 now is a completely different beast to what it was when I played it, because it's now the whole online thing. So I'm not too sure if this person is saying the story and the main game, or if they're talking about everything that's come since, because they're very two different games. So
yeah. No, I think we all kind of agree with this one. Arnie, what about the next one there?
Oh Lord, this one's near and dear to my heart. This is from Zodiac. He says, "Here's my hot take: Lost Odyssey is a better Final Fantasy 12 than Final Fantasy 12 or 13, but nobody likes 13, so that's not too spicy." Here's the thing: you know what? I've been actually thinking about going back to Final Fantasy 13. I feel like the biggest slight against it is the linearity and just the story, like how ridiculous it is.
You mean two of the biggest important things about the game you have a problem with?
I guess, but listen,
it's linear, the characters are boring, and the story doesn't make sense. But I'm gonna play it anyway. All right.
Yeah, I was just like,
great game, though.
I feel
great
like
game.
I need to go back to it. I feel drawn into the Neil story.
I gotta say, I haven't played Lost Odyssey yet, but sorry, Arnie, go ahead.
You need to. And this coming from a guy who made it to the final boss and never actually beat the game.
Oh my god!
Moving along,
we've all done that. Don't worry, we've all done that.
But no, Lost Odyssey was great. It was one of those where I bought it, and I remember I borrowed it from a friend actually, because he had it, and I opened it up and I was like, oh, there's 4 discs in here. I was like, this is an Xbox 360 game. Never seen that before, up until that point. Then later, I think Blue Dragon did that as well, and there's a few RPGs on the Xbox 360 that have multiple discs on them.
Yeah.
But so immediately I was like, oh, this is throwback. I like this. And then I started playing the game, and it's genuinely engrossing. The story is good. I enjoyed the characters. There's interesting combat mechanics to it that I think are really good. And here's the thing is that I remember playing Final Fantasy 12, but I never got very far into it. And I think it was sort of the Paul Ocarina of Time situation where I was like, there's so much stuff to do, and I just don't want to do any of it. This seems really tedious, and I'm not about it. So I sort of fell off Final Fantasy 12 pretty early on. I'm hoping that Geoff has played it and can tell me if it's worth going back to, because in the years since then, I remember when that Final Fantasy 12 remake came out and everybody was like, oh, I love Final Fantasy 12. It's amazing. And I'm like, really? Because I don't remember anybody talking about this game for the last 4 years or something.
Yeah, no.
Geoff,
yeah.
Did you play it?
I did, yeah. I picked up the remaster as well, but I haven't started it. So I had my experience with Final Fantasy 12 was I enjoyed the world and the setting and the potential of it, especially with so I'm going to forget the names now, but I think they were the Justices, the guys who looked like they were wearing crazy armor. That's what immediately pulled me in, and you got some really good characters like Baltair, Balf.
Yep.
And they're like the space pirate and Fran, the bunny girl. There were some really interesting elements to it, and I found myself compelled by those. The gameplay, I actually I de-evolved it, so you could basically automate the battles, but I made sure I didn't do that because I didn't want to automate everything, because I just found I'm just watching stuff happening, and that's not particularly interesting. But I got so into the battles and doing the hunts and the side stuff that I actually lost a lot of interest in the story. So whenever I go, I've got to do story stuff now, I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about. Everybody's got really weird names, so I don't remember the names of anyone. And I was going I was going like 20, 25 hours between story elements, and I was like, okay, I'm lost. But I'm just going to play through it because it is what it is.
Yeah. That's what I remember. It's just like, because I think you could do like, I don't remember if it was called bounty hunting or like monster hunting or whatever it was.
Yeah,
but that was
much.
like so deep, and like you could get into it. It was like a completely separate game from the main game. It was like you could be doing this for like 40 hours, and I was like, oh my lord, this I don't know about this, guys. I gotta like get home, and I got things to do, y'all.
You have to like eat.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I need sleep. So like, I feel like if you bought it and you got into it, you were set. Like you had 200 hours of gameplay if you wanted it. With Lost Odyssey, it just felt like a smaller game, but epic in scope. Like the story seemed very epic, and it was like very big and very grand, and the characters seemed like they were super, like the characters really drew me into the world, and there's a lot of world building, and there's a lot of, sort of setting up big events. But the actual gameplay like loop and area was a lot more contained, and it made it less intimidating for me to be like, oh, okay, now we got to get to the next thing, and then the next thing. Yeah. And now I finished a disc. Like I can visually see how far I'm getting into the game. Like now I'm on disc 3, now I'm on disc 4, there was just something about it. Like maybe it just hit me at the right time, but I was all on board for Lost Odyssey.
Interesting. I got to try it this year because I've got it, and you're not the first person, and neither is Zodiac. By the way, his name's Chris, and he's a co-host of the Retro Hangover podcast, who also have some hot takes on their show from time to time. It's a good show. But anyway, I've got to try it this year. I've got some time off from work coming up, so I think I think that's the one I'm gonna take a bite out of. I meant to play it last year, and it just didn't happen for me. And Geoff, it's not to deviate too much from the takes here, but your approach to combat in Final Fantasy XII diametrically opposite to mine. My approach was to automate as much as possible, and my greatest feeling of success in that game was when I had to do nothing at all. When I could just watch the characters, and I pulled all the right strings, and then I didn't have to actually intervene. To me, that was a success. It's funny that you were like, no, I don't want to automate. I want to actually play the game, which does admittedly sound much better than my approach.
No, but if I got to look at like your approach, there's that sense of you're already thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead. You're already going, right, based on what I'm seeing, I can put this together and I can win a battle just based on pure tactics. So I kind of get that as well. It's not being lazy. It's just a different way of strategizing, I guess. Yeah,
I agree. Thank you for not calling me lazy. Thank you for not calling me lazy.
No worries.
Oh, Lord.
Arnie, next one. Let's do this.
Oof. Oh, God. This one's bad.
I know this one is like a punch in Geoff's nuts. It's great.
I know, this is horrible. Oh.
Also from Zodiac, aka Chris, the Dreamcast is probably the worst system of its generation compared to the Xbox, PS2, and GameCube. Terrible controller, many of the games have aged horribly, and almost all of its best games can be found on other systems for cheaper, with little degradation and sometimes improvements. While we're at it, Shenmue is trash. You know.
Do you want me to address each point, or what do you want?
That's an opinion. I'll go first because mine
okay.
mine is pretty short. I did not grow up with a Dreamcast. I think if I was ranking them at the time, I would have probably put the GameCube last because I didn't like there was just not much there that was calling to me. Outside of your Zeldas and your Marios and your Luigi's Mansions and Animal Crossings, which are all great, but like that wasn't what I wanted to play at the time. Like for me, the Dreamcast is like Jet Set Radio, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, even the stuff that I didn't get to play, like Skies of Arcadia, like stuff like that, which I think later came to the GameCube, so it's kind of proving his point with that one, but, but there was, I wouldn't say the Dreamcast was the worst of that generation. I would say it had the worst controller, though. Yeah. I do agree with him on that one.
There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. But that's me. That's me.
Geoff, what about you?
So I'm gonna read it out. I'm gonna read it out, and then I'm gonna say whether I agree or disagree, and then we'll see how far I go. So the Dreamcast is the worst of the system compared to the generation. Disagree. Sorry, disagree strongly with that. It has a terrible controller. Agree. Many of its games have aged horribly. Agree. Almost all its best games can be found on other systems for cheaper with little degradation and sometimes with improvements. Agree. Shenmue is trash. Ooh, I'm on the fence about that. On the fence. I can't go back and play Shenmue again, but I loved it at the time. Oh yeah, he's got a bonus, but we're not going to go through that. So it's like, I don't really disagree, but whether it's the worst of the generation, I really struggle. I've had all four consoles, and if I was to rank them myself, PS2 is definitely number one. Dreamcast for me is second. Then I'm touch and go between Xbox and GameCube, mostly because most of what you came because Xbox had Ninja Gaiden, and that's probably my favorite game of the generation.
Oh wow!
Wow.
It was just an incredible game. But the GameCube, it's like there's 3 or 4 really good games, but I struggle to go back to those. Like Metroid Prime and Metroid Prime 2 are fantastic. But again, like Zelda, Wind Waker, I don't think that's aged particularly well.
So, disagree. But please continue.
Okay. Well, I played the Wii U version, which probably it was improved because you could go faster in the boat. But indeed, like the Dreamcast, where it really excels and why I still play it today is all the 2D fighters. They were utterly exceptional, and they're better on the Dreamcast than they are on the PS2. So that's where, for me, like the Dreamcast still is a fantastic console of the generation. Is it perfect? Hell no. That controller is utterly abysmal. But there's still enough going on there that I always kind of go back to. So,
yeah. And I think looking at it within the context of its generation, like the Dreamcast was just the most exciting, in my opinion. Yeah. And I mean, look, PS2 aside, right? Because the PS2 is superlative on all fronts, right? So we're not even comparing it to that. Let's just compare it with Xbox and GameCube. For me personally, the Dreamcast was a singular entity. It came first. It generated a ton of excitement. It was the herald of the new generation. It had just a plethora of creative games for it. Yeah. Stuff that we had never seen before at the time. Xbox and GameCube come out, and I mean GameCube, Chris is right. It's a better system technically. A lot of the Dreamcast games came out on the GameCube with improvements, and that's all true. Yep. But I wasn't excited about the GameCube. I wasn't excited about it because I already had a PlayStation 2. The Xbox was doing things differently, right? The Xbox was pushing the online play. The Xbox had Halo. It
custom
was
soundtracks.
Thinking.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So the GameCube was just kind of like, it's just a slightly more powerful but ultimately inferior version of those other two systems. Whereas the Dreamcast was its own thing. It came first, generated a ton of excitement, lots of creative development into it. I don't know, man. For me, it's kind of like 2 and 2A between that and the Xbox, because the Xbox also, you know, very, very forward thinking for its time as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the aspects that he points out, which is that its best games can be found on other systems. There's two prongs to that. One, I think it depends on what you mean by best game. Because there's a lot of games that like people look at now on the Dreamcast that you can't find them anywhere. Cannon Spike, Project Justice. I think it has the best version of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 of that generation. Choo Choo Rocket. Yeah. Like, these are games that you can't really find. I think Choo Choo Rocket had a version that was out of the Dreamcast, maybe on like Game Boy Advance or something.
Yeah, GBA got it.
I think so, yeah.
But the other aspect of it is that like the reason you can find a lot of those big games somewhere else is because Sega, and I think we've talked about this before, was really good at like making sure their properties are always accessible. They're like, oh, you want to play, Jet Set? Like, here it is. You want to play Sonic? Like, here's 7 ways to play Sonic. Here's Toe Jam and Earl. Here's like all this and that. And they made sure they were everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, even I think in Japan, they had like Sega Ages releases where you could play Phantasy Star and like all this crazy stuff on PS2 and all these other systems. So Sega is just a really good company about making sure that like its biggest releases are available in some form or fashion for people to play almost at any point.
Yep, agree. Well, that's an interesting one. Because a lot of these are like, you kind of look at it and you're like, I agree. Saints Row 4 is better than GTA 5, for what it's worth. Lost Odyssey, that's really good. But this Dreamcast one, I was like, oh boy, I don't know about that.
Oh my god.
Anyhow, let's take another break here, and when we come back, even more hot takes. All right, everyone, and we're back with more hot takes. Geoff, do you want to take it away?
Sure, yeah. So first up from PKMN Snap, or Pokemon Snap. This is a hot take all about The Last of Us, so brace yourself, guys. The Last of Us, yeah.
I've buckled my seatbelt.
The Last of Us is an okay game. No more, no less. I do not understand it being called, quotation, the greatest game of all time. Edit, I've never heard anyone call it that, but fine. It has an incredibly strong start, plot-wise, but takes a long time to pick up again. I don't believe it does anything groundbreaking, especially gameplay-wise. In fact, I find it a little boring at times. I don't dislike the game, I just think it's way overhyped. Discuss.
I'm gonna let Paul start because he's talked about his feelings on The Last of Us before.
Yeah, this comment made me very happy because I agree with almost all of it. The only thing I don't necessarily agree with is when he says, I don't believe it does anything groundbreaking. The presentation was groundbreaking, I would say. Yeah. Like he said, that first half hour is like legendary. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it really does a great job of gripping you. And the only reason I stayed with the game for as long as I did was because of that first half hour. It was incredible. But gameplay wise, I'm not really a big fan. And it does take a while for the game's story to kind of pick back up again. And so, it just kind of lost me about halfway through. I'm sad to say, because it really had there was just so much potential there, but ultimately I think it just kind of fell flat, at least for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a game where I feel like the only reason I put up with the gameplay in between the cutscenes was because I wanted to get to the next cutscene. Like I was genuinely interested in what was going to happen in the story. It's a thing where I think Naughty Dog with the Uncharted, like the first 3 Uncharted, really cinemafied like video games. Like those, the first 2 Uncharted games I remember really enjoying, but they were like set piece after set piece after set piece after set piece. Like you just want to get to the train that's, you know, falling off the cliff, or you want to get to the, you know, the next like crazy event where he like jumps out of plane, or, you know, something like that. So it really was like when I got to play The Last of Us, the beginning section, I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is great. It's so, you know, it's completely different to what I was expecting going into this game. And then I got to like the stealth stuff, and I'm already not like a big stealth guy. So I was like, all right, I guess I got to put up with this and, you know, do it and craft the thing. And, but then after a while, it just became, I just want to get to the next story bit. Like, I really don't care about the stuff in between. I just want to get to the next story bit until it's done. I do find it infinitely entertaining. That the hot take here is that the game is just okay. Like, it's not even that the game is bad. It's just like, I don't like it as much as some other people.
Yep.
But no, I think a better take would, I mean, I think the overhypeness has been going on more with the sequel than with this one at this point. Like, I mean, I hope it's great. I hope people love it, but from what I've seen of Last of Us 2, I'm not excited for it at all.
Oh, interesting. No, because I'm really interested in the sequel, just for the story continuation.
Yeah, like that part I want, like, I'm curious to see what's going to happen, and I'm curious to see like what's going to happen with Ellie now that she's, you know, older, and now she's going to take center stage. Yeah. But when they showed that gameplay demo, I was like, I was just uninterested. I was like, this looks like the stuff I'm going to have to do in between the stuff I really want, which is just seeing what happens.
Exactly. I mean, so for me, I don't want to insult anyone or put any disparage upon like modern gamers. But for me, like Last of Us and Uncharted are just your typical symptom of modern gaming, where most of it's done for you. And what you're left with is very bare bones gameplay that does nothing exceptionally well. So Last of Us is not a zombie game, so it's not a survival game, it's not a stealth game, it's not an action game, and it's not a platformer, but it does all of those things, and it does all of them averagely. So there's crafting, but who really cares about crafting? It's not, it takes you 3 seconds to craft a Molotov. It's like, do I really need to see that animation? Does it really matter? So cinematically, utterly unbelievable. I absolutely agree that you're going from cutscene to cutscene. And I like to get through things quickly. So Metal Gear, for example, Metal Gear Solid, when it became really apparent that the AI was so intelligent that you needed to be incredibly good at stealth, I backed away because I'm like, I'm not good enough to be this good at stealth games. But at the same time, The Last of Us is a complete opposite, whereas like you need to be stealthy, but it doesn't make sense. The AI isn't quite there, but we're gonna make we're gonna force you to get through room after room, and you're gonna hate it every single step of the way. So that's where I'm definitely like, I love part of Last of Us, and part of it I absolutely like can't really have any, I don't really have any time for. And that's for me and Naughty Dog in general. That's my relationship with them, of like, you give me great looking games, but you guys clearly put gameplay not even second in priority. It's somewhere down third, fourth, fifth priority on your list. Maybe I'm doing a disservice because there's people hard at work over there, but you know.
Geoff, I pretty much agree with all of that. And I don't know, why don't you bring it to our next one here?
Sure. So second up, I've got from Free Radical Dave, Final Fantasy XI is the best Final Fantasy game, and by a long, long way.
Well, it is interesting. He did make some arguments where I was like, well, you know, maybe. He says it's so unbelievably open. The job system was unreal, 22 jobs in total, and the areas and enemies were all beautiful, and you had to be part of a community to play the end game. And I'm like, you know what? These are good points. I haven't played it, so I'm going to ask someone I know who's played it. So I sent a buddy of mine a message because I knew he was really into it back then. And just out of nowhere, I just said, would you say Final Fantasy XI is the best Final Fantasy? His reply, fuck no. And I think he said that not because it's a bad game, because for an MMO, it's probably really good. I think he said that because it's an MMO.
Yeah.
And like many people now, he's kind of generally resentful of MMOs, period.
Okay.
Yeah. What I was going to say is sort of falls in line with that, is that like everything he brings up about Final Fantasy XI sounds extremely awesome, but it's only possible because it's an MMO. And so I feel like it's a little unfair to compare that style of RPG to just a console RPG where, you know, story has to sort of be taken into account and it can't be that open because there's sort of, you know, they have to make sure you get from point A to point B to point C to point D. Obviously, like, there's a lot more you can do when you have the kind of scope that you need to make an MMORPG. You're counting on thousands of players playing this game, sort of all, you know, being able to interact with each other at any given point. So you have to make sure that, like, boss battles are bigger for giant raids. You have to make sure the world is so large that it can accommodate all these people. You have to make sure that there's enough variety, that you don't just get people just playing the same characters over and over. People need to fill roles in raid parties. Like, all of that is integral to an MMO. So the scope and the scale sort of goes up exponentially when you design a game like that.
Yep, I agree. It's not really an apples to apples comparison. I appreciate the opinion. But yeah, the guy I asked had put in, you know, thousands of hours into the game.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I am going to trust his opinion. This is the same buddy of mine, by the way. I don't know if you guys remember, a long time ago, I put up a post on Instagram where I quoted this friend of mine where he said, the only reason people like Zelda is because they weren't good at Street Fighter 2. Which
that's amazing.
I think about it every once in a while, and it kills me, man.
That's awesome. I will say, as a recovering World of Warcraft addict for several years, I completely agree with your friend on everything.
Yeah. All right, Geoff, how about another one?
Right, so we've got from Hicker88, Dark Souls, because there's a difference between difficult and unfair. You turn a corner and get beheaded by a hidden guy. That's not fun, and it's everywhere.
What do you think?
So my immediate reaction is, hey dude, get good. Get good. Yeah. Learn, remember, use your brain. Things, you know, that's in that corner. This is going to jump out. You know, like, it forces you to learn. It's not unfair because it will tell you once and then you need to remember. So I'm like completely in defense of Dark Souls. For me, possibly my favorite game on the PS3. So I'm going to like staunchly defend its difficulty because it's difficult. But at no point is it saying I'm difficult and I'm going to be unfair. It's a case of I'm difficult and I'm going to allow you to learn, and you better learn quick.
I don't necessarily agree with this. Sorry, when I say with this, I mean with you, Geoff. Because I see where you're coming from, where to me, it's not the fairness. I actually don't really think it's an unfair game per se, but I do think it's a little bit too brutal. The thing I don't like about it is, and this comes from playing Sekiro recently. I'm not a Dark Souls veteran by any stretch of the imagination, but just from playing Sekiro, I would get to I'd be able to get through the levels. Okay, it's a beautiful game, you know, really well made. But as soon as I reach a boss, it's soul crushing, dude.
Yeah, I get it.
I reach a boss and I know that the first time I reach that boss, I have not only no chance of beating that boss, I have no chance of even knowing how. I have to die another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times in order to just kind of like figure out how to beat him. And then once I've figured out how, I have to rely on my 40-year-old old man reflexes to get me by this situation. And I'm like, I'm kidding. My reflexes aren't that bad. They're not like, they're good, but still, like, it's that soul crushing reaching a boss and just getting utterly wrecked the first time. It's rough.
But don't you? I mean, the where I see Dark Souls in the world of gaming is we need games like Dark Souls. There's a place for these type of games, because in the past, if you look at the old NES and SNES games, there's plenty of games there and bosses there that are just utterly brutal, and the feeling and of like, okay, I've got to get through this. Like even Ninja Gaiden, like those original games, they are tough as hell. Like they will beat you down, and you have to have the fortitude to kind of go, this is beating me down, but god damn it, I'm going to learn and I'm going to get better. And now you've got people who can beat these games without losing a single life, because they're people who just love that. They love that torture. They love that learning curve. And I'm glad that Dark Souls exists, but what I'm really glad about is that for as successful as Dark Souls and From Software have become, they're not making their games easier.
Okay. All right. What about you, Arnie?
Well, I mean, I guess I should have known that Geoff was irreparably damaged when he said that Ninja Gaiden on the Xbox was his favorite game, because that game is like beat you in the face hard.
Yep. And the camera angle sucked. The camera angle is horrible in that game.
But no, I am Hicker88. Like, I've never played a Souls game because I understand that, like, the second something like that happens to me, I'm just going to, like, lose my mind. I'm just going to, like, cry. You know? And I think the difference here is that I understand where Geoff is coming from, in the sense that these games definitely need to exist and they're just not for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I don't ever need to play one of these games. I can watch somebody play them and you know, get upset with them, but I don't need to be the person who's at the controls of something like this. But I think you do need you need something like this for those people who like a challenge like this and who want to sort of experience it, who want to take it on and sort of get better. So I think the gaming world would be a little less exciting if Dark Souls wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
sort of my takeaway from that.
One thing I will mention though, Geoff, is I see. Okay, so last year I played and the year before that I played the crap out of Dead Cells, and Dead Cells is a known like difficult game, but I never really felt as crushed as I did playing Sekiro. Mm-hmm. Whereas, unless I'm mistaken, you kind of fell off of Dead Cells because it was too difficult?
Yeah, all right, okay, calm down. Calling me out. Oh, I can't believe this. No, but you're absolutely right. The amount of times I would get to the final boss and I would just get beat down, and I'm like, I can't do that again. And then I would get another run and I wouldn't get the weapons that I need. I'm like, oh, all right, forget it then. At least Dark Souls, you have your weapons and you have your equipment and you're ready. Dead Cells was like, no, here's some crap weapons. I'm like, ugh, thanks.
All right, I was just kind of curious because personally, I didn't find Dead Cells as difficult as Sekiro, for example, but. And I just remembered right now, I'm like, wait a minute, didn't Geoff quit Dead Cells because
I didn't quit it. I didn't quit it. I just want to make sure we're clear here, Paul. Clear. I didn't quit it.
Set the record straight.
It's just to one side, and I'll come back to it.
All right. I'll accept that. All right, guys, let's take another break here, and when we come back, you won't believe this. We're gonna have more hot takes.
Damn.
Oh Lord. How much outrage can people handle?
All right, everyone, and we're back. And this next one that we're going to get to, this is one of my favorites because our good friend Cam, aka 16_bit on Instagram, he's been on the show a couple times, and man, this guy kills me. He came up with one, and I knew he was going to because over the years that I've been following him, he's never missed an opportunity to shit on Turrican. And his comment was simply, Turrican can fuck off.
Cam is a pot stirrer, man. Cam is a pot stirrer.
This is one of like my most amusing running jokes on Instagram is Cam's dislike for Turrican, his hate for Turrican. Because like I've played Turrican, I've played several Turrican games. I love them all. And I love Gunlord, which is like the spiritual sequel to Turrican. These are just like, they occupy a very certain niche in kind of like the side-scrolling action genre. And I have all day for them. But Cam is just like, and when I asked him to elaborate, he's just like, I just hate it.
His range of things that he hates is like insane. Because I know he hates he hates Lagoon. That's one that he truly hates. He hates Turrican, and then he also hates the original Panzer Dragoon.
Yeah.
Like just like all over the map on these.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love seeing the randomly distributed hate. So moving on here, Red Retro. So, okay. Red Retro sends us a DM. And he says, hey guys, I think I have to be the king of unpopular opinions. I hate Mario. I don't like side-scrolling. Never played Metroid or Castlevania, etc. I think Breath of the Wild is definitely overrated, and I absolutely hate Mario Kart 64. So I read this and I'm like, oh my lord, where do I even start? And so I asked him, I said, okay, this is a lot. So why don't you just elaborate on Mario Kart 64? Because I wasn't expecting that, right? Like, people don't like side scrollers. Yeah, okay. Breath of the Wild is overrated. I mean, that's a little bit silly in my opinion, but he's not the only person to have said that. But Mario Kart 64, I thought had like this universal, acclaim. I thought nobody hated it. Oh man, does Red Retro not like Mario Kart 64? So
his hate has been honed over years.
It was awesome. It was this is like an explosion. Point. Yeah,
I like to think that he had a very cathartic moment when he wrote all of that down. I have to hope that he.
Oh, he must have.
I have to hope.
Yeah, no, I'm happy that we were able to provide this service for him. We're like a priest at a confessional for this guy and Mario Kart 64. So he says, I get that it's an early 64 game. I'm not expecting miracles, but that game is just utter garbage for so many reasons. In no particular order then, the character roster. They shouldn't be taking away old characters and favorites like Koopa, and then they should be adding new ones. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
The handling is absolute total shit. The carts don't feel connected to the track in any way. And then he goes on to mention that the SNES version had super tight control, which I agree with.
Yes.
Yes. What do you guys think about the controls? Because I've played Mario Kart 64. I played it briefly, and I don't know. It was all right.
Here's my thing. I played a lot of Mario Kart 64 when I was younger, and I've never felt the need to come back to it. I remember playing it at a bar like maybe a year or so ago, and I don't hate it. I don't hate Mario Kart 64, but I can definitely see if you played it again now, not loving it as much as you did back in the day. I've always thought Diddy Kong Racing was the better N64 racing game. So I'm already primed for this opinion.
And he mentions as much. Like, he mentions that
yes.
Diddy Kong Racing did all this stuff, like adding new characters and so on and so forth. And I mean, he does mention a few other things here that, this was a long rant. He does mention a few other things here that I agree with. It's not something that I cared about because I wasn't like a Mario Kart 64 guy. But the fact that the computer has rubber banding drives me nuts.
Yep.
This drives me nuts in racing games. Like, enough with rubber banding, giving the computer more speed when they're behind you. Drives me crazy. He goes on about the lightning, which apparently is overpowered, and it was there all the time. There's a whole bunch of like he goes over like each track and why they're terrible. One thing he does mention as well that I agree with is the battle mode was kind of ruined. I remember playing Mario Kart 64 and like we never played the battle mode because it just wasn't like the SNES one was just way better.
So good.
Yeah.
Was so good. The thing that broke my heart is that at the end of all this, so I'm reading this and I'm like, all right, because we've talked about this before, where we're like Diddy Kong Racing is like a number one racing game on the N64. So like I'm reading this whole thing, like 7 paragraphs, and I'm like, this is it. It's coming up to the end. I know he's going to say Diddy Kong Racing is the thing. Yep. And then he's like, if you want to know what I think is the best racing game, it's Crash Team Racing. And I'm like, motherfucker. I'm like, all of this for you to betray me at the end. Top 10 anime betrayals at the end of this rant. Stabbed in the back.
But you know what? I think Ozzy would agree with him. Ozzy's mentioned Crash Team Racing on the show before, and I haven't played it myself, but evidently, like, popular opinion is that Crash Team Racing is the shit.
Yeah, well, that was another one. Like, when that remake got announced, everybody and their mother was like, I love Crash Team Racing. And I was like, where are all these people coming from? Like, I've never heard anybody talk to me about Crash Team Racing up until this point.
No, the last 20 years until a year ago, Crash Team Racing was never on my radar. Then suddenly it's everyone's favorite game. I'm like, shut up. Shut up. But that's social media in a nutshell, isn't it? The new thing is my favorite. Yeah.
But overall, I do agree with the point, just not the like passion behind it. Because if I think about my favorite Mario Karts, 64 is probably near the bottom of the list. I think Double Dash is up there. The SNES game is up there. Even the DS game is like really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know that I'd go into that much detail about it. But yeah, Mario Kart 64 was just benefited, I think, from being, one of the few like big racers on the N64. Yeah. But even on that platform, like, Diddy Kong Racing, I think, is better, and F-Zero is probably better too. I haven't played it, but I'd have to think that it's a little bit better.
I'll stick up for F-Zero X. It's really good.
For me, Mario Kart 64 is the worst. It's the worst N64 games of Nintendo's main IPs. Like gotcha. when you kind of boil it all down, it's like I can't pick it up. I can't play it again. I also incompletely, like, you go from the SNES, and I had the SNES game, and me and my mates all played the SNES game, to go into here's the next game, and there's less content, and the controls aren't as tight, and the tracks, especially the motorway, the speedway, whatever, like, even today, because that track is, like, for some reason, a favorite track in all the Mario Karts. It's like my least favorite track in the whole series. And there's just many things in Mario Kart 64 of, like, it's great that it went 3D, but I absolutely completely agree with Matt. I'm like, now I'm nowhere near the same level of hype that other people seem to still have for that game.
Yeah.
This is awesome. I'm gonna like make a clip of that opinion of yours, Geoff, and I'm gonna send it to him, and he's gonna play it as he falls asleep each night, and he's just gonna have great dreams. It's gonna be awesome.
Lucky boy, Matt. You're a lucky boy.
Yeah. Also, just to cover the first part, I don't hate Mario, but Luigi's better.
Oh my goodness.
Luigi is the better bro.
I don't understand what the deal is with people who stick up for Luigi.
Luigi's the best.
Why? He's terrible. He's a second banana, and he doesn't offer anything. He just follows Mario around. Mario is the straw that stirs the drink. Let's not pretend otherwise.
Do you play as Mario in Super Mario Brothers 2? Who's your guy in Super Mario Brothers 2?
Either Princess or Toad usually. Maybe
Really?
not Toad anymore, but yeah, Luigi's really good in Mario 2.
Luigi's dope.
Yeah, he's good. He's
Luigi's
good.
awesome.
Yeah. Next one there.
All right. Geoff, I think you have the next one.
Oh yes, I do indeed. So, this is from this is my best German accent. Spielemeidl. I think that's how you say it.
Oh.
Spielmeidl.
Oh, damn, dude.
Yes.
I think that sounded great. I'm not
I
German,
know.
but nice job.
Yeah, thank you. So here we go, and this is one that I have a bit of an opinion of. Life is Strange. Here we go. Life is Strange is totally overrated in my opinion. I spent 1 hour in the game and just hated the game mechanics. Super confusing, all the time turning stuff and try again until you do it right. Never gonna try it again. Yeah, I am so on board with this. It got so much hype and everyone speaks so highly of it. I had friends who were telling me they were saying they're enjoying it. So I'm like, okay, the only way I can have an opinion is by playing it myself. So I picked up the first season. I played the first 2 chapters and I really found myself thinking, I don't give a single fuck about any of these teenagers and their teenage life and their teenage where problems. I went through being a teenager, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I don't want to play a game looking at teenagers having a moan. So that's where I kind of like, and also the mechanics just didn't grab me. Reverse time, make a decision. Someone jumps off a roof.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't care. And if you don't care about someone jumping off a roof, then I don't think it's the game for you.
Yeah, definitely is.
Where is my office environment video game? Where is it? I am tired of plucky teenagers, often who are way wittier than I ever was.
Yeah,
I want a game that has adults in shitty work environments getting upset for... I don't even know what I'm talking about here. I'm just starting to go on
No, but you're right. We
pointless
talked
rant,
about
but,
this. We talked about the Persona game that's going to take place in like the Office Space universe, essentially.
If that game ever
like a
came
bunch of
out,
30-somethings who like
my God,
have to go
I would
to
never
work
have to
every
play another
day.
game again.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I want that game. I want Life is Strange, but it's about like my shitty mortgage. You know what I mean? Like I go to the bank and I negotiate a certain rate, and I'm like, wait, that rate's garbage. I'm gonna rewind, and I'm gonna try a different tactic.
I honestly agree with you. I would play that. I haven't played Life is Strange yet, but I've really wanted to since the game came out, because all I keep hearing from people is that the story is like super engaging and very emotional, and it'll get you to like really care about the characters. And so you guys are the first, like this comment and Geoff's opinion are like the first I've heard of like, no, this is boring and not like interesting at all.
And I played Life is Strange, but it was only like an hour and a half. But yeah, I think I mostly agree with Geoff. I'm not really I'm not as passionate about it.
But
as
I've seen a lot of guys who have said like they love this game the
for sure.
story was very like emotionally intense for them. I just spent like 12 hours of my life watching The Circle on Netflix. So I definitely down for some drama. Like,
I gotta watch that. I gotta watch that one too.
It's amazing. Yep. Highly recommend.
All right, Arnie, how about the next one?
This one I'm so excited about. So FF Cottage, big listener of the show, always love talking to him on Instagram, says, I think Lightning is the best Final Fantasy character, and apparently some people find that problematic. Shrug emoji. This is an opinion that I have seen crop up more recently, like especially ever since I got on Instagram. I've seen there's a lot of people who really, really like Lightning as a character. I don't think they necessarily like Final Fantasy 13 or its subsequent sequels. They might, but whenever I hear them talking about it, it's mostly about how much they love Lightning.
Yeah.
I will say, I think she wasn't she in like a Louis Vuitton like campaign or something, or was it like Versace or something like
Louis
that?
It's like the
Vuitton,
most
yeah.
square thing Square's ever done.
Yeah, it was Louis Vuitton, which I'm like, I think that gets you like points off the bat. You know, you've crossed over into the human world.
Yep. No, she was by far the most interesting character in an otherwise unforgettable game. Or it's a game you remember because of how bad it is. Oh, I know. I'm now deliberately trying to wind Cottage up. But she is an interesting character. It's just a shame she had to share the space with not very well developed characters. And I've heard that the sequels are good for her as well, and they delve into her character a lot more. So I have heard good things about like the total character they built.
Yeah, and I think Square agreed, because as those games go on, they just become about her. Like the first game, the second game, Lightning Returns, just like, here's the one you want, here you go.
At least they listened.
Can I offer a hot take on Lightning?
Go for it.
Yes.
My hot take on Lightning is that anybody who dislikes her is just like a frustrated 13-year-old gamer gator. Here come the 1-star reviews.
We're so canceled. I will say, though, I do want to get quick hits on this. He says that she is the best Final Fantasy character.
Yeah.
That's a big statement.
That is
so,
huge.
Jeff, like, who is your favorite Final Fantasy character?
Cool. My favorite Final Fantasy character. That's a tough one. I really like Tifa, and not for the reasons you're thinking. Thank you very much. But the reason why I like Tifa so much is because she's. I always liked hand-to-hand combat characters in Final Fantasy, so she's hand-to-hand combat. But also her sheer perseverance in trying to save Cloud and trying to help a friend of hers, try to bring that person back from the brink of having this crazy breakdown of in his psyche. She was just a very loyal, very loving, very caring individual. And okay, the design aspect is very anime trope wise, but I really felt like she was an incredibly strong character, and as much as she was helping Cloud, like she was going along with his own self-deception, she did actually kind of come across in the end of Final Fantasy VII as one of the strongest and one of the most admirable people. So for me, I always kind of edge towards Tifa.
Okay. What about you, Paul?
Probably Kain from Final Fantasy 4/2.
Yeah.
Just because that whole situation where there's like a love triangle, I'd never seen that in a game before at the time that I played it. And even to this day, I think they did it really well. It wasn't like overly dramatic. Kain was just kind of like, he seethed and he eventually redeemed himself. And I don't know, I thought that was really interesting. Can I offer my least favorite Final Fantasy 15 character?
Sure. I know who it is.
Oh, so you...
It's Ignis.
It's totally Ignis. Any opportunity I have to poop
Ignis
on
was my
Ignis.
favorite character of the four of them.
Oh my god, are you serious?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, Arnie, I don't know if we can be friends anymore.
He's just such a douche. I love him. Just such a little shit. Like...
I can't help it, man. That guy, like, I'm the smart one, so I have the British accent in this world where that makes no sense at all.
Yep.
All right, I'm good.
I think mine is Vincent, but not for any real reason. It's just because he looks really cool, and like that's kind of like how I wanted to look when I was 13. I was like, yeah. I could definitely rock the red trench coat and the metal glove. I could do that.
Oh my god, I'd pay money to see that.
I also like Barrett because he had a gun for an arm, and I was like, that's sick.
Oh my god, I can just imagine Arnie showing up for school and somebody being like, "Cool, Vincent cosplay," and Arnie's like, "What's cosplay?"
Exactly. This is just me, Mom. You don't understand.
All right, let's wrap it up. One more here.
All right, from one Final Fantasy opinion to another, also from Derek Device, he goes, Final Fantasy VIII is better than Final Fantasy VII. It looks better, the story is better, and the junction system is better than Materia. And, you know, we got a few of these, like, Final Fantasy VII is just okay, you know, sort of opinions, which I can't tell if it's actually a hot take or it's just, like, at this point, there's just so much backlash against Final Fantasy VII for just being, like, the RPG of, like, that whole generation.
Yeah. I put up a post. One of my posts requesting hot takes was Final Fantasy IX, a picture of Final Fantasy IX, and my hot take was Final Fantasy IX is better than Final Fantasy VII, which, by the way, I don't believe. I just wrote that in order to
be inflammatory.
Yeah, in order to be inflammatory. And all the comments were like, yeah, it is. I agree. And I'm like, this is not the turn I was expecting this to take.
You've been hoisted by your own petard.
I sure was. Geoff, what do you think, man?
On 9 or 8 being better than 7?
Let's start with 8. Yeah, let's start with 8.
Cool. I mean, the comment is saying that the story's better, and I'm gonna like revert back to the Life is Strange comment that I made around caring about teenagers. It's like where we're a bunch of orphan teenagers and we were all together, but we're not gonna tell you that until 30 hours into the game. Where our teacher turned into a witch. Where end of game. It's like, this is, to me, that's Final Fantasy VIII is a teenage. Let's all feel sorry and mope around for 50 hours whilst we defeat giant cactuars. You know, that to me was Final Fantasy VIII. It did some things really well. I agree the comment about the junction system. I really like that. I thought that was a really cool idea.
Me too.
So the gameplay wise and the battles, yeah, man, absolutely better than Final Fantasy VII. It looks better. I think that it does in general look better, but only because Squaresoft they're getting better at developing for the system. But I prefer the aesthetics of 7 because of the whole cyberpunk, because of Midgar, basically. So I'll always prefer 7, which is why we're going to get a whole game just based in Midgar, because they know how cool that is going to be. But yeah, 8, I completed it, but I got to the end not knowing or caring who I was defeating and why. And I was a teenager at the time. Let's not forget that.
What was the name of the main girl in Final Fantasy?
Rinoa?
I think that was Rinoa, right?
Rinoa, that's right. Isn't her limit break like that? Her dog gets on top of her wrist crossbow and she like fires it into the enemy.
Amazing.
That right there, that'll score you some points with me.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's the kind of ridiculousness I love.
I loved 8, but the only problem I had with it was there was a big chunk in the game where it just felt like the story wasn't moving at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know, the beginning was good, the end was good, but in the middle, it was somewhere during disc 2 where it was just like, oh man, this is dragging. But yeah, man, I don't know. I thought it did a lot of innovative things. I thought it was really good. And, you know, to the point about 9 and 7, like, look, here's the thing. 8 and 9 are like, if you were to take them and not have any history with any of these games, you could very easily say 8 and 9 are better than 7. But 7 was the first, and it was like a giant leap forward. And for that reason, a lot of people are just going to like it better.
Yep. Well, I think... Yeah, I would say, I think that the big thing we see today between 7 and 9, this is just my brain kind of going off in all weird directions, but I think people today who are into retro gaming and going back and playing these games, these are people who genuinely like Final Fantasies for being story driven, interesting characters, dynamic world, and 9 has got a more interesting world overall. It's got very fantasy based characters. Vivi is probably one of the best characters they've ever made. And it really has a lot of charm. It has that. It really makes you feel like I'm playing a SNES Final Fantasy on the next console, rather than being this weird cyberpunk or real life like characters. So I completely see why gamers today who love those type of RPGs would prefer 9, because 7, if you talk to casual gamers who no longer do the retro collecting, the guys who bought the PlayStation Mini Classic, they all played 7, and they didn't play 8 or 9. They all just played 7. So that's why there will always be that general consensus that 7 is the best from that era, from that console. But I think the people who genuinely love JRPGs, I can see why they would often go more towards 9.
Yeah. I think that, like you guys have said, I think 8 does look better than 7, but I don't think that was too hard, to be honest with you. Like, 7 was early, 7 was early on. The story in 7, I personally prefer. I could see, some people liking 8's better, but I just think there are bigger stakes in 7 overall. And I mean, Sephiroth is a big mama's boy, but he just looks dope again. Like the same way with Vincent. I want long white hair and a giant katana. Like, that's what I want, and I can't have it anymore. And then as far as 9 goes, my thing with 9 was that 7 seemed like kind of dark, and like just even outside of the story, just like the palette of it and the way that it was designed. Like Midgar seems like a sort of dark, kind of oppressive setting. Yeah. And 9 felt like a lot brighter, a lot more cheery. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like you said, it sort of harkens back to the earlier Final Fantasies. And so I think people going back now are like, oh, like, yeah, this is a lot more, this is fun. Like, I like this. This is like, the characters are more sort of out there. The story seems a lot more fun. So I could definitely see the appeal that 9 holds now. And I think 9 was like a late release in the PlayStation 1's lifespan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like right around the time the PS2 came out.
Yeah, so maybe that's why it didn't initially grab a lot of people, because they were already like looking towards the next thing. And now with the opportunity to go back, they're like, oh, damn, I can't believe I didn't play this when it came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely, I think you hit a good point there, which is the era too. Like, we're hearing more people talk about it now, but I also think that's just because, like, at that time, a more cheerful game wasn't necessarily more welcome, right? Like we had just gotten Metal Gear Solid. We have all these games that are like more adult, more dark, more edgy, more real. And so Final Fantasy IX comes out, and it's like this throwback, theme wise and feel wise. And people are like, no, we've moved on from that. Whereas now, we live in this world where it's just crappy ass news every day, and something like Final Fantasy IX, which is a little bit more whimsical and lighthearted and has a brighter color palette. Yeah, I could use more of that.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Cool.
So I think that about covers it.
Well, you know what? We have a minute. Let me do one more. Jeff, are you okay with one more?
Yeah, let's do it.
So this last one, also from Derelict Device. This dude, he had a lot of stuff to say. It's awesome.
He had a lot of opinions.
This one was probably my favorite of his, which is, analog sticks are the worst. Way to send your character off in the wrong direction. Want to walk in a straight line? Impossible, because the slightest movement of your thumb to the left or right sends your character careening off in that direction. So I agree to a point. Like, I kind of see where he's coming from as far as, 3D platformers and so on. There isn't anywhere near the precision. But if I'm playing Gran Turismo, you better believe I want an analog controller.
Oh, yeah. I think I'd be lying if there weren't like points in certain games where I was just like, just let me use the D-pad, for God's sake. Like, I just want to move in this one specific direction. I don't want to drift to either side. But I think games have gotten a lot better with stuff like that. Like, I remember, I want to say God of War has like a mechanic where if you're walking over something that's narrow and you fall off, the guy just automatically grabs onto the ledge and you can climb back up.
Yeah.
So a lot of games have gotten really forgiving. I know some do like a little balance thing where you just sort of have to try to keep your balance one way or the other. And as long as you don't go too far in one direction, you won't fall off. So I think a lot of games have gotten better about things like that. But overall, there's just too many genres now where I'm like, no, I want an analog controller.
Yeah.
I need it.
Yeah.
I think what they're doing now is perfect. Like, put a D-pad on there, put a couple sticks on there, we're good to go.
Yeah, just give me the choice. Like an FPS game with a D-pad. I mean, I'd rather play FPS with mouse and keyboard. That's a whole other ball of wax. But like, without an analog pad, you are not playing an FPS on a console.
Yeah.
I'm thinking I've got a friend who also distinctly he doesn't like dual analog sticks when he plays FPSs, so he doesn't play FPSs because of it. But like, he can't seem to, his brain doesn't seem to like make all the connections to be able to do moving and looking all at the same time. It just, some people just like, I can't, like, they just struggle with it. And I can completely get that some people want to do very specific things, and the amount of times I've played an open world game where it's like, I need to walk through this door, I can't, it's taken me 3 attempts to walk through, like GTA games. GTA have got one of the worst controls. It's really not very good, and you're really just, it's pure luck. It like driving and flying, but brilliant, but walking around and moving, utterly terrible. So I completely get there are like some games that just implement it appallingly, but there are, as you guys are saying, there are games that have brought up that kind of element of forgiveness. I mean, if I think about the current gen, like Yakuza, Spider-Man, God of War, I don't remember having a single problem using analog sticks. But in none of those games, you really need to be specific in what you're doing.
Yeah. I think you just reminded me of something, Geoff, is that like the one time I truly get frustrated with analog controls is, I think there are just specific games, I can't think of any off the top of my head, where either the camera like moves around, the camera sort of adjusts itself, or there are fixed angles. And so it'll be like, okay, I'm going right, and then as soon as I turn a corner and the angle changes, now I'm walking backwards for some reason.
Yeah.
But I've never changed the direction that I'm pushing the stick. And I'm just like, God damn it. And it's the worst whenever like there's a loading screen between like a place that you're going and a place that you want to be. So it's like, all right, I'm going through this door, loading screen, pop in, and then automatically walk back out. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh,
now I have to watch the loading screen, and now I'm outside again. I have to go back inside, let go of the analog stick until it loads, and then I'm like, all right, now I can go forward.
Oh my God, how bad is it that to me that's just normal now, and I don't even think about it as a bad thing, it just exists.
Yeah.
But
this is
too many times.
This for me, that's not analog sticks are bad. That's bad development. That's bad programming. That's not the stick's fault that the camera suddenly switches. I mean, we had a comment earlier about the Dreamcast, obviously. Like Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 have got some of the worst controls in any game. And it's all analog, and it's an absolute mess. But it's because they didn't know how to go from 2D to 3D at that time. They tried because they had to. But when it's executed that appallingly, of course you just want a D-pad. I completely get it.
Yeah. So you're telling me that I've been yelling at my controller and throwing it across the room for no reason, is what you're saying.
Vent all your anger towards the developers. Get on Twitter and tell them what you think, because they're gonna listen. Don't you worry.
This should speak to like how my brain works, that immediately my thought was like, I'm gonna write an angry letter to Sega of America right now.
Dear Sega. Oh, please write that. Please write it.
All right. I think that's a good place to end this, because no good can come from this particular tangent. So anyhow.
Hey, Paul.
What's up?
Can I quickly tell you the hot take that I had prepared for this episode?
Okay, make it quick.
I was going to say that Pokemon Snap is the best first-person shooter on the N64.
Let's leave it there, huh? Let's leave it there.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. This has been a lot of fun, and thanks everyone for sending in those hot takes.
Yes,
this
has
been one of the more fun episodes we've had to record, just because of how ridiculous the whole thing is. So again, thanks everyone. If you want to talk to us, you can reach us on Instagram, mainly at Region Free Gamers Podcast. We are also on Twitter, where because of the character limit, we are Region Free Gamer. Yep. Or you can send us an email if you have any suggestions for the show, or you want to get in touch, regionfreegamers@gmail.com. And of course, make sure to visit our website, regionfreegamers.com, where we write companion pieces to pretty much all of the episodes here. Ozzy's working really hard on that, and he's doing a great job. So absolutely check out the website, regionfreegamers.com. And I don't think I'm missing anything, am I?
No, I think that's it.
Cool.
I love doing these fan episodes. I'm sure we'll do more of them in the future. So thank you guys for participating and going along with our insane ideas.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Like on one hand, like I see, listener mail episodes from other podcasts, and I'm like, oh, that's a little bit lazy. But on the other hand, like it's just so much fun interacting with everyone and getting, just getting ideas and so on. It's been a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks to our listeners. Arnie, Geoff, thanks guys.